But I guess we'll move on to the Thursday night football game as we usually do here. And let me get that on the screen here. And that's going to be so for Thursday night. We got a pretty decent matchup. We got the Vikings versus the Rams this week. The way Vikings are favored by 2.5 points. Over under is about 48 points, so not pretty decent over under. Should see a little bit of action there. Ethan, what kind of thoughts do you have on this game flow overall? Then we can kind of get into like betting tips and DFS plays from there.
Yeah, I think we may see some points being scored on a Thursday night. I do think the Vikings come away with the victory here. I was actually kind of surprised to see Minnesota minus 2.5 at minus 122. I know last week Denver was minus 3, and I thought that was uh, kind of stealing money with the Saints and how decimated they were. And then as we got closer to the game, that line actually went to minus 2.5. So last week I thought that was a smash, and obviously the Denver Broncos killed the Saints. And I do think at minus 2.5, even a money line of minus 155, I think that's kind of stealing money too. I know it's in LA, but the Vikings are playing great football. They're one of the best teams in the NFC. The Rams, Cooper Kupp is coming back, and they might. I mean, they might play some inspired football in prime time, but I do think the Vikings come away, and they're going to win by over a field goal. And I'm going to. I know in my betting tips I took a conservative over, but I don't think I hate taking Minnesota minus 2.5 and taking over 48. So I think points are going to be scored, and I think the Vikings are going to take care of business.
Yeah, I think I'm with you over on the Vikings. Vikings taking this one here. I mean, I kind of look at my notes on this game, and really the Vikings have the upside in a lot of categories here. I mean, you got Darnold's time to throw is elite in the league. He's top three leading into to last week. Against a not so great pass rush. You got, the Vikings run game has been surprisingly really good too. So, I mean, they're pass blocking well, but they're also run blocking really good. So, we'll get into that obviously you can kind of see my DFS play as well and kind of how I think that flow will go as well. But yeah, just overall, LA's run defense, doesn't really combat very well with any of that stuff there too. So just a little bit of quick synopsis on my end there. But yeah, I agree with you. I like the Minnesota 2.5 points as well. As far as my bets, I actually like LA under 21.5 is a plus 114. So I think they're under 3 touchdowns. And a race to 30. I think this one's interesting. I think I'm going to say neither here. Just because I do think the Vikings can get some sacks, they can run the ball. It's going to be a little bit less uh, total possessions for each team. So I think the Vikings can actually milk a lot of the clock in this game. So I actually, for once, it's very fun to bet the over, but I'm like kind of more of an under Debbie Downer this week, where I like the LA under. I got the race to 30 neither. And then if you got the Minnesota 2.5 points, it still turns into a plus 310 parlay. So that's kind of my betting tips for this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, raise to 30, I think minus 120. I think that's pretty good odds considering it is a Thursday night game, short week. A lot of times we don't see offensive explosions. So I do like that leg. LA under 21.5. That's going to hurt the over a little bit here. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. Obviously that's plus 114. So that will be I think the hardest leg for you to hit there. And then Minnesota minus 2.5. I think that's kind of stealing. To go to my tips, like I said, Minnesota minus 2.5, conservative over at 43.5, and then my captain Cooper Kupp over 69.5 yards. I'll kind of get into those reasonings in more detail later, but I do think the LA Rams are going to have to throw the ball a decent amount against the Vikings, and I think the Vikings are going to be playing from from ahead, which will lend to your captain, Aaron Jones. And like I said, lend to my captain in Cooper Kupp with the Rams playing from behind.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see. Let's actually jump right into the DFS play, and for those who are not aware, that's our captain's lineup that we do every week for our Thursday night. We definitely want to get a little skin in the game on Thursdays. We got some little betting action, DFS plays, captain's lineups are fun because that's when you got to spend about 1.5 times more for your captain, but they score you 1.5 times more points as well. So. Lot of different strategies we kind of cover week to week. One strategy doesn't always win, but we'll kind of jump into this. And I think here, let's pick on Kamish since he's not with us tonight. We'll go with his captain. He's got the Vikings kicker. So Will Ricard, the Vikings kicker for 8,100 as his captain. We'll actually go right into his value because you see a big old blank name there. So I mean, I guess he kind of texted me. He's like, "Hey, I don't really need a value player when I got my captain kicker as my captain." So I imagine he's able to get some studs in his lineup with the Vikings kicker. So I don't hate it. I kind of just for giggles, I did look at the spread for his over 1.5 field goals. It's a -131. So they do think opposed to the Rams kickers, much less. It's closer to even money. So good likelihood. If you can get at least 2 field goals, and if one of them's like a 40 or 50 yard field goal, yeah, you can be in 10 plus points, and obviously you're in the money a little bit more if they get three or more field goals. But Ethan, not super exciting talk about kickers, but I tried to do my best there. But if you want to talk on Kamish's captain, you can go right into yours after that.
Yeah, when you can get a captain for as little cost, 8,100 allows you to get pretty much all the other studs into your lineup, kind of like we did last week with the Denver defense. The Denver defense went off for 30 points, and they were relatively priced as the captain. So Commission's kind of following that same blueprint, and in the last 2 games that Rijkaard's played, he scored 16 and 15 points. So if he can do that again, I mean that should smash as a captain. So with that said, I'll go to my expensive captain, Cooper Kupp, which I do expect to play. He did practice in full on Monday. His price point is 16,500, and I'll kind of talk about both my captain and my value because it's kind of the same reasoning why I have 2 Rams receivers. And at the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings are 32nd against receivers, and a big part of that is because the Vikings have been playing ahead pretty much the whole season. So it's forcing teams to throw the ball a lot. Opposing teams have passed the ball on 69.9%. They pass the ball 69.9% of the time, which is the highest in the NFL. That's translated in Minnesota giving up the 3rd most opponent passing yards per contest, 260.3, and the most fantasy points to opposing wideouts on a per game basis. And it's not to say that Minnesota is terrible against the pass. They just, excuse me, they're playing from ahead, and teams are forced to throw the ball at basically a 70% clip. So that kind of lends to Cooper Kupp, who is clearly going to be Matt Stafford's number 1 option. Every time Cooper Kupp's in the field, he is hyper targeted, especially without Puka Nacua. And and obviously the cast of characters behind Cooper Kupp isn't isn't great. Jordan Whittington, he only played 9 snaps due to a shoulder injury last week. With the short week, he may not play again, which kind of led to my value pick in Tutu Atwell at 4,200, who went 6 for, I believe, 54 yards, 6 for 51 on 9 targets last week. So I do think Tutu can have a good game, and Tutu Atwell with his speed, he can get a big play anytime he goes deep. So I do think the Rams are going to be playing from behind. I think their Stafford's going to be dropping back a ton, and he's going to be looking Cooper Kupp's way early and often. So that's why I went with the high price Cooper Kupp. I just went with what I thought was one of the best matchups on the the Thursday night slate. And I'm just kind of excited for Stafford to get his guy back. Also, just an interesting note, maybe the Rams showcase Cooper Kupp a little bit. There was reports that the Rams have called multiple teams about trading Cooper Kupp, according to the Athletics, Diane Rossini, Mike Silver, and Jordan Rodriguez. Apparently, the Rams are willing to eat some of Kupp's 2024 salary if they receive a second round pick. So maybe they showcase him a little bit, be like, hey, look, Cooper Kupp's healthy. He can help a team get over the top and win a Super Bowl. So that's why I'm going Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that's kind of some interesting insight there. I did see that as well. I mean, I think Cup had the he could have came back a little bit sooner. I know he's been running around in practice, but yeah, just kind of saving him for this at least this Thursday night game as well. But yeah, I mean, I think hopefully this is kind of a Cup coming out, I guess, back out party, really. I mean, he really had a great start to the year. I mean, it was kind of looking like the old days with Stafford and Cup. So, I mean, I kind of hope that happens, just, not for DFS, but for my fantasy league. Like
Yeah.
so I need him to kind of step up there. And yeah, a trade would be really cool. It's interesting. I actually saw the Vikings and the Rams have been in trade talks there, where even Stafford is talked about being a trade subject for the Vikings. So I thought that would be a little goofy, but not to get too off track. We'll definitely track the Rams players as they're getting up there in age as well. But yeah, I mean, I think Cup's a safe play. I think, to your point, I think exactly how we think it's going to go down. They're going to need to throw it, pretty often. But yeah, I mean, he's just an expensive captain, so I think from a losing, if we both think they're going to be losing, he needs to at least come down with a touchdown, I think, to really make it pay off, right? But yeah, can't hate Cooper Kupp. My captain is Aaron Jones this week. I kind of alluded to it. I kind of like, really just the Vikings overall in this game. They're, with them being favored as the away team, defenses travel well. Their defense has already been playing, pretty elite this year. So like I said, I think Vikings can actually slow the game down a little bit, get a comfortable lead, and keep feeding it to Aaron Jones, which I do know for some fantasy managers you weren't sure if you're going to play him or not last week with this hamstring injury, but he looked pretty fine. I mean, he still rushed the ball 17 times, ran for over 116 yards. So I think as far as is he healthy? I think he proved that last week. He should be fine for this Thursday night game. But then the last little tidbit here is the Rams. Rams have the worst average depth of tackle this year on defense against running backs at 6.9 yards. So pretty bad at stopping the run overall for the Rams this year. And as I mentioned, the Vikings have actually one of the best run um, offensive lines for run blocking as well, according to PFF too. So a little bit of surprising. You wouldn't have thought of them preseason as a powerhouse running the game, running the ball. But that's why I kind of like Aaron Jones this week.
No, Aaron Jones is a great matchup. The Rams allow 151.7 rush yards a game, which ranks 30th. So obviously that's going to lend to Aaron Jones and the fact that we think the Vikings are going to be playing from ahead. So definitely like the Aaron Jones call. I'm surprised Ty Chandler isn't incorporated into this offense a little more. He only had 2 carries. I mean, with Aaron Jones coming off kind of the injury he had, you think they'd kind of try to make it more 60-40, but they give the majority of work to Aaron Jones, which is great for fantasy. But if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you have Super Bowl aspirations, I would think you'd want to keep Aaron Jones healthy throughout the season. And Ty Chandler's explosive. So I don't really understand why NFL teams kind of, especially these aging backs, you'd think you'd want to kind of spare him a little bit, but it's a story for another day. Obviously, in fantasy, we want volume, volume, volume. So Aaron Jones has been getting that, and I think he's gonna have a good game this Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's good you brought that up. I mean, it could just be for the fact that it was the Vikings-Lions last week, and they just needed, keep all their stars out there, all their heavy hitting guys. But yeah, maybe to your point, in a lineup, if you can sneak in a Ty Chandler too, sometimes the RB2 on the team can sneak in a touchdown as well. So Chandler, he obviously he's not my value. I agreed with you with Tutu Atwell, so I didn't add too much there too. He's kind of my value play as well, but. It's funny you brought Chandler up. I was considering throwing him in there, but we'll
He's
see.
he's my dart throw. He's in my lineup, baby.
There you go. Well, you kind of have to, as I
Yeah.
said. You got Cup as your captain there.
Ty
Nice.
Chandler RB1 this week.
Let's go. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our Thursday night matchup, and